Mark Rolston on the Fisch Bowl. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Sam. Appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.
Is that what people do? Swim in the bowl?
Yep. They swim in the bowl, and I hope the temperature is just right.
Great.
Awesome. Well, first off, I just want to say that it was a real pleasure meeting you at the Steel City Con, and I'm so happy that we were able to get you on the show as like the following week. Thank you again for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me. I am like a huge fan. The first question that I wanted to ask you is, what got you interested in film?
Oh, wow. If I had to think back, my father was or is a pretty stern disciplinarian, and we had restrictions on the amount of TV we could watch. But it really goes back to an old Saturday morning television show called The Bowery Boys. You're certainly too young to remember that, but the black and white serial about a bunch of kids on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and it just totally captivated me. And it went from there to my father he's very good about taking us out to films. So I remember one of the first films we went to see was To Sir with Love with Sidney Poitier. And, it was an engaging time as well, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. There's lots of great expansion made in the film industry. And I like to think, just reflecting back now, is that, I kind of lived through some of the and worked through some of the heyday of real filmmaking. I'm very proud of that. And, they say once you get bitten, that's the end, right?
Right. It's definitely the truth. I mean, for me, my first memory is seeing Back to the Future Part 3 and in theaters at age 3. And I've been obsessed with that franchise and movies ever since. And I really have to thank my dad for kind of guiding me on the path of chosen film, because I always say this in my interviews, and people probably get sick and tired of hearing it, but my first R-rated movie was actually Total Recall, and that was at age 5. And and like seeing a movie like that at age 5, and then him starting me on like the regimen of like Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme, all like the major action stars of like the 80s and 90s. I'm like obsessed with that genre, and that's why, like, I'm a huge fan of yours, because I've been following your career since really Aliens. I guess that's a perfect segue to talk about that film. So much in that movie. James Cameron, Sigourney Weaver returning as Ripley, Michael Biehn, just Bill Paxton, everyone in the cast was phenomenal. And I was wondering if you could share any personal experiences that working with the cast and with Cameron about the film.
Absolutely. Keeping along the line of which you were sharing about, your love for action movies, certainly Aliens being probably one of the preeminent sci-fi action films, maybe even ever. Well, next to Blade Runner and some other great ones as well. But yeah, the one thing I can share for you is the very first day that my first day of real filming was my death scene in Aliens. And boy, did I get thrown into the deep end. It was a 4-hour session in the makeup room. They had to put, a prosthetic piece of the burns on my face with tubes that were underneath them, because they were going to pump little chemicals and things so the piece would bubble and fizz and smoke. And I was also there with a fully loaded flamethrower, and told by Jim Cameron to just fire, like you're going to be away from the camera, turn into the camera, screaming, your death cry, as well as firing the loaded flamethrower directly at camera, not above or below, directly at the camera. And after I'd made that pass, I had to fall down in between a couple of lit flame bars and then wait for a couple of very large stuntmen to lift me up in front of a huge helicopter fan to blow away all the fumes from the appliance because they were toxic. And I did all that while holding my breath.
Wow.
So that was really getting thrown into the deep end. And I remember after that day's filming, it was like, wow, that's a real introduction to action filmmaking. So there you go.
Right. That's awesome. I've also always been a huge fan of practical effects, and I'm from Pittsburgh, so obviously there's Tom Savini, who I'm a huge fan of, but the one guy that really did it for me with practical effects was the late great Stan Winston, and
absolutely.
I had a chance to interview his son Matt, and talked a little bit about the films that he worked on. Like everything that guy created was amazing, astonishing work, and it's because of him. Just like I'm into action movies, I'm also into practical effects because of what he did for Aliens and Predator and Terminator, Jurassic Park, and the list goes on. And I was wondering if you had any personal experiences with Stan.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we one of the mandates I had in being put onto the film in the role of Drake was that I had to bulk up. So that meant, months prior to actual filming, I was training, 8 hours a day. And I actually put on about 45 pounds. I was finished up about 230, 235. And I'm really like a comfortable 195 in my regular life. So Stan and I met because Stan liked to work out as well. So he would join us in the gym. And, we had a great time just, in camaraderie, just working out together. But the one moment I had with Stan that was really fascinating, we were in the disused power plant in Acton, which is north of London. And we were about 4 floors up. And there were, steel railings and things. And Stan and his crew were dressing and working on the location where, everybody sees all the people that had been entombed by the Queen Alien, right? And were actually just entombed and waiting for the aliens to pop out. And I was just walking around the back of the set, and Stan was there, and I was just watching him, put the rig together. And I said, wow, is this... So the alien, it's just a simple, like pressurized little pulley system. And he was like, yeah, it's sort of simple. You just, somebody's going to be back here, and they'll just press this button or a little plunger, and boom, there goes the alien popping out of the chest. I said, wow, that's fascinating. He said, well, go around the front. Just go around the front of it, and, I'll show you. So I walk around the front of the set. I'm standing there, right? And all of a sudden, when the alien comes wriggling out, I swear to you, I leapt about 10 feet in the air and almost over the railing. Could have easily gone 4 stories down because I was friggin' frightened. And I thought to myself, once I caught my breath, it was like, oh my God, I was just behind the set and he was showing me exactly how practically this thing was going to work. So, and I had that in my brain. If I knew that and it still scared me the way it did, this is going to frighten the crap out of the audience. And sure enough, the night of the premiere, Bill Paxton and I, where it was, all the suits from Fox and other companies, everybody dressed to the nine in tuxedos, affectionately called the Penguins. And Paxton and I were sitting together, and at that moment when the alien first pops out, the entire audience just leapt out of their chairs, and Bill pulled my arm. He said, dude, this is going to be awesome. So it's fascinating just to see Stan do his stuff. And, and actually, the way Cameron shot the whole of Aliens, there's no CGI. Stan created miniatures and practical effects on set, and Cameron's methodology was, good old camera moves and lighting effects and, all those good elements that, we almost have forgotten about because created all in CGI. But there's the one thing about Aliens when you watch it, I mean, there isn't a single shot where you go, kind of corny or not quite up to snuff. Every shot is perfect and stands up to this day. And having the likes of someone like Stan Winston on board, I mean, it just makes everything, that much more brilliant. He was a brilliant man.
That's awesome. The thing I kind of liked most about the film, because like the way I mean, I like all the Alien movies and all the Predator movies, and even the AVP movies I like a lot. But the way I kind of view like the original Alien quadrilogy is I really have to put Aliens at number one, then the first Alien, then Alien 3, and then Alien Resurrection. I think they're all equally good movies, but Aliens, just out of all of them, it has that action, horror, suspense, thriller element to it. And like how the first film kind of like introduced you to the creature, and what it kind of was is like a kind of like a giant alien vermin, essentially, or like an alien bug or something. And I've seen director's cuts of all the films, and there is that sequence in the first Alien where Ripley finds Dallas being like kind of like broken down to make like the egg. But it wasn't until you kind of saw Aliens with the Queen, the introduction of the Queen, and just like more into what those creatures are and how they operate. It was just an awesome movie through and through. And I always thought that your character got killed off way too soon. I was really like, when Drake and Vasquez were introduced, I was like really hoping that like both of them were gonna at least make it to like the final battle. And when I saw your character get knocked off, I was like, oh damn, like what a waste of a true badass. And I always just wish there was a longer role for your character, but the movie was just absolutely phenomenal, and it definitely still holds up today, partly due to practical effects and sets. And like you said, so much of that's been replaced by CG that we kind of like forget that element. And I think that's what makes a lot of the movies of the 80s and 90s, and even prior to that, hold up, I think, better than some of the films that are being put out today.
Yeah, Cameron, came up from the Roger Corman school, so Jim knows like absolutely how to, squeeze every drop out of a set or a location or an effect in crafting his movies. And it's because of that I know Jim, he's full bore with the CGI with the remaining Avatar films, which he's working on now. And no doubt, like the world that he created through CGI for Avatar, I mean, it was brilliant to look at. I mean, I can't say I was a huge fan of the movie, but hey, who am I? He's making 2, 3, 4, and 5 apparently. So
right.
We'll be saturated with Avatar. But yeah, it's amazing too. An anecdote that maybe a lot of fans don't know is the fact that Aliens only cost $18 million. That was our budget, and in today's money, it would have been $180 million. So a fairly modest budget for a film that sort of rocked the world. I'll never forget. I was in Hollywood, came to Hollywood on the strength of Aliens being the hit that it was. But I remember I walked into a bank one day, and one of the security guards, an older gentleman, came up to me. He said, "Hey man, you're badass." And I said, "Oh," I said, did you see Aliens?" He went, "Dude, I've seen it 6 times." And I was like, "What? It's only been out for 2 days." He's like, "Yeah, man, I go in and I hide in between the screenings." So he said, I watched like 3 times in a row, both days. I was like, oh my God, we've created a monster here, Yeah, and the really, really gratifying thing as well is the fact that, successive generations have been introduced to aliens, and the young kids, like, I mean, your exposure to film was very, very young, and I've met as young as 5-year-old kids who have seen aliens, and just are now part of the family. We've got at least 4 generations of people who have enjoyed the movie and have passed it on. It's really gratifying.
Absolutely, that film will stand the test of time, and new generations will learn about it and watch it and make their own judgment on which one's is their favorite. But my personal opinion is, I think everybody's favorite is Aliens. I've had numerous conversations with like various different people who love those movies, and everyone says Aliens is their favorite. And I definitely feel it's, out of all 4 of the like original films, I think that's the one that holds up the most, as with character, story, action, and just special effects, just everything about it. I just think Aliens is definitely the best out of the quadrilogy. I also want to talk about a few of your other films. I have a list here. The second one I want to talk about was Lethal Weapon 2.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big Shane Black fan, and I learned a lot of my screenwriting crafting from watching his movies growing up and rewatching them as an adult. And I was wondering, what was your experience working on the film?
Well, Lethal Weapon 2, I mean, my fondest memory is the fact that I got to work with Richard Donner, who was, the sort of quintessential Hollywood director. He's a big man, had a booming voice, commanded the set, and loved just being able to work with him. And, in terms of action films, I got to do some pretty interesting stunt driving on that movie, because my character lost all the millions of Krugerrands that were in the trunk of the vehicle. But there was one particular moment where I got into this very souped up BMW, and Dick Donner comes up and he goes, "All right, kid, you okay with driving?" I said, "Sure, no problem." He's, "All right, I want you to go right up this ramp up here and make a hard left and another hard left. Come on back down the other side. Go as fast as you can." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So I take off. I'm zooming up the top of the ramp, and I see the people that are supposed to be like holding traffic, like they were just chatting. They weren't even like looking, right? So I got to the top and I pumped my brake just a little bit because I thought, Jesus Christ, they're not doing their jobs. And I turned around and came back down, and Donner comes over and he's like, "Come on, kid, you said you could drive. What'd you hit the brake for? You're trying to get the hell out of here." I said, "Don't worry." I said, the guy wasn't really watching. "Don't worry, I'll sort it out." And then Donner's like, "God damn it, whoever's up there, give her a walkie-talkie. Make sure you just hold the traffic. Hold the traffic. All right, kid, go." So this time I go zooming up the ramp, really booking it. And when I took this turn, oh my God, I thought I was going to lose the back end of the car because I did a fishtail. And when the car finally came back behind me, it was like, boom, like it just like hit me square in the butt. I had never driven so fast, or at least hadn't taken a turn that fast. But it came back around down the thing, and Donner's there like, "Good job, kid. That's great. All right, print that one. Let's move on." It was just, it was exhilarating. And I have to say too, when I actually did the scene where I get shot, the infamous scene with Joss Ackland, he says, "Never mind the plastic, we're doing some painting." And, I'm sort of looking around, not quite sure what's going to happen. And in order to do the shot, they actually had a professional marksman who had an air gun in which he put a little wax pellet that had, stage blood in it. And he had come a couple days prior to shooting, and he had measured my height, the distance of my eyes from the floor, et cetera, et cetera. And then the day of shooting, he showed me, he said, "Look, I made this plywood cutout of you, and that's where your eyes are. And I just wanted to show you that, I'm a marksman. and I will hit the same spot every single time I shoot. I'm only going to be about 8 feet away from you. He said, I'm going to shoot at this amount of pressure. He said, if you at any time feel frightened or unsure of yourself, do me a favor, please fall forward out of the shot. Don't fall backward because of the trajectory of the pellet. It loses, velocity as it's going through the air, and it will start to drop. So if you fall back, it may well hit your eye, and we don't want that to happen. So I said, no problem. I got it all ready to go. So, he showed me 3 times, right exactly on the mark. And he said, don't worry, it's not going to feel like much of anything. I said, okay. So ready to shoot. I'm standing there staring down the barrel of this gun, and plack, it splatters like on my head and sticks because of the wax. The wax is stuck to my head, and it looked like, brain matter or bone matter was like flying out of my head. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like somebody just thwacked me in the head. And
Oh, wow.
and we had to do it twice. I never had felt frightened or fell forward or anything. And sure enough, after the second take, Dick Donner was like, all right, that's perfect. Give this kid some danger money. And they gave me $10,000 for doing the stunt. And it was around Christmas time. And I went home. I was like, you're not going to believe this. They gave me $10,000 to do this stunt. A few months later, I was working on a TV show with Leo Penn, Sean Penn's dad. And I was recounting the story. And oh my goodness, he dressed me down in front of a bunch of people. He was like, what are you, stupid? He said, what do you want to be, a one-eyed actor? He said, that's why they have stuntmen. Stuntmen are supposed to do that. Not an actor. You don't do your own stunts. And oh my goodness, he made me feel about 2 feet tall. And I said, I had to think about it. I was like, you're absolutely right. If I had an accident, an actor is not very good with just one eye. And in fact, I had a guy who was my stunt double for years, a guy called Larry Rippenkroger. I mean, he and I were like nearly identical. And he was jet ski championship, a world-class jet ski champion. And he injured himself. He was doing a high fall out of a window, and they had marked it. He did it once. When they come to film, his foot just got caught a little bit on the window ledge, and he missed his mark and fucking hit the edge of a dumpster.
Oh,
and was
man.
in hospital. Yeah, hospital for almost a year. They never thought he'd walk or talk again. But miraculously, Larry was back to doing stunts in a couple of years. But yeah, Mr. Penn was probably right, even though it was exhilarating, being, involved in a stunt like that. And stunts are fun, but, at my age now, it's like the biggest stunt I want to do is like standing up and sitting down.
Right.
So
that's awesome.
But yeah, Lethal Weapon 2, great part of the franchise. I wasn't on the film long enough really to, say I was an integral part of it, but surely a memorable part of it. A lot of people remember that scene.
Definitely. Part 2, I think, is my favorite sequel out of the Lethal Weapon franchise. I think it's just like, I thought all the sequels were decent. I just happen to think that the second one was kind of like had that part 1 and part 2 kind of feel, and the rest were just kind of like sequels that were added on. And it also went down a very like dark route compared to the first one, especially with the follow-up with Riggs's story with what happened to his wife, and kind of like tying that around. In my opinion, I just thought it was the best sequel out of the Lethal Weapon franchise. But I'm a huge fan of that franchise, and I love all 4 of those movies. And I heard that they might be doing another one. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I'll go see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got on Lethal Weapon 2, to be honest.
The next film that I want to talk about, being a massive Schwarzenegger fan, is Eraser. I know you didn't have a huge role in it, but it was definitely significant enough to me to talk about that film.
Sure. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it wasn't a huge part, but this is an interesting point I can make, sort of follow on to what we were talking about before with CGI. Like I did the famous scene of we were in the aquarium and the window gets blown out. I'm in a room with real alligators, and they had two huge alligators that were bolted. That they had like a ring around one of their feet and bolted into the floor, so that when these, I think it was like 150,000 gallons of water or something, just came flooding out from this aquarium set, and was kind of moving us around like it was nothing. But you were sure not to move in the direction of the alligator. And the follow-on I want to mention is the fact that that was one instance in a film when I watched it. It was like, they CGI'd some additional crocs into the scene, and they were just so fake. It wasn't, a real memorable scene, because universally, I mean, a lot of people I've talked to, like, yeah, I thought the same thing. It really looked pretty fakey, and that's pretty much all I can tell you about the film in terms of the action. Although that, Schwarzenegger is a great guy, and he, every Friday he'd come through the set with boxes of Cuban cigars under his arm and just passing them out to all the crew. And he's actually responsible for me learning to love a good Cuban cigar, because as he was coming through the set one day, I very daintily, I said, "Oh, thanks, Arnold." I took one cigar out of the box that he was offering to me. And he turned to me and went, "Hey, don't be a pussy. Take a handful." So I took a handful of cigars instead of just the one. And then it's been my favorite cigar ever since. It's a Punch Petite Corona. Very delicious.
That's awesome. I've heard my fair share of stories about Schwarzenegger just from like watching like special features on a lot of the films that he worked on, and some of the stuff that I heard on Predator is just hysterical. And just the guy in general, I don't think people quite realize that he's a real practical jokester. And he's also a really like a funny guy, has a great sense of humor. And it definitely shows in some of his films, like Kindergarten Cop and Twins, and some of the other films he worked on. But Schwarzenegger is like my number one favorite, action star of like all time. I'm like obsessed with the guy because of Total Recall. I have I call it a wall of Arnold Schwarzenegger action figures, posters, and memorabilia. And I'm definitely not a stalker, but I'm definitely obsessed with the guy. But that's awesome. One thing I actually didn't have a chance to tell you at the Steel City Con, and this is a perfect segue into the next film I wanted to talk to you about, was I actually 2 days after the Steel City Con was over, I had a chance to talk to Ty May, got him on the show, and I mentioned your name because one of the films I talked to him about was Rush Hour. That's the next film that I'd love to talk to you about. And he kind of told me, his experience on the film, and I was wondering what was your overall experience working with the cast and crew.
Well, I hope you had something nice to say about me.
Oh, it was nothing but nice things.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. No, Ty's a lovely man, and I have to say it's a very fond memory. Rush Hour, primarily because Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan are just impeccable human beings. Chris is obviously very funny, but off camera as well, he's a very serious businessman and a really good guy. And Jackie, I mean, like in my career, he was the quintessential gentleman, star, and extremely generous. I mean, he threw parties that, oh my goodness, they were just incredible. Like he threw a Christmas party, and he rented the whole of Planet Hollywood. down on Melrose Avenue, or Beverly Boulevard, whichever it was. And he said, bring anybody you want. I was like, really? He said, yeah, bring your friends, bring anybody. So I brought another couple of our dear friends, and he greeted us at the door like, he was oldest friends with all of us. There was absolutely everything you could have asked for, to eat, to drink. We played pool into the night against his father, who was then like 85, and he was just clearing the table with everybody. Nobody could beat him. And and Jackie on set was just kind of a marvel. He's like a human cat. Like, the guy can do things with his body as well as his crew that you're dumbfounded. I mean, the whole sequence in the movie where he runs up the tree and flips himself onto the roof and then flips himself back down through the window. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I watched him do that 3 times. I mean, I watched him run up a tree. I mean, it's like, how the hell do you run up a tree? It's like, it's extraordinary. And another little funny anecdote is the fact that at a quiet moment in between shots, Jackie would never leave the set and go sit down in a chair. He would stand right on his spot. And I kind of said, Jackie, do you want to sit down or something and take it easy for a minute? He was like, no, I stay here. He said, don't want to waste time. Don't want to waste any energy. I said, oh, that's interesting. He said, yeah, American film wastes too much time. They waste too much film. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, in America, you go, okay, rolling, sound speed, then you say action. But in Hong Kong, we say, okay, action. He said, you waste too much film. You get all that film rolling through, rolling, sound speed. We save more money in Hong Kong. So, and also in that same conversation, I said, by the way, Jackie, I just wanted to mention to you, your early films like Drunken Master and Drunken Monkey. He was like, yeah. I said, well, I voiced your character into American English. And he looked at me wide-eyed and would say, no, you, me? No way. I said, no, really it is. I said, it's my voice put to your film. So that's another little claim to fame I've got. I started off my voice acting career by revoicing Jackie Chan.
That's awesome.
Go check it out. No, it's really cool, actually. It's, I've done some martial arts myself, but they're really fun movies. I mean, they talk about action comedy. He's the king, man. He's the king.
Absolutely. Again, I'm a huge fan of Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, and I really, really love the Rush Hour movies. The second one, I think, well, it's really hard because the first and the second are really like a part 1, part 2, and they're both really, really good. But I just happen to think it's a great trilogy, and I personally love the character progression of Carter, because one of the things I thought was hysterical was I'm actually a Jewish, and the thing that I found most hysterical about the character progression of Carter is that in the first movie, when he goes on the plane, he accidentally orders the kosher meal, and then in the second movie, he's so excited to get the kosher meal, and then by the third movie, he's that's all he eats when he goes on a plane. And I just thought that particular thing was hysterical to me. And then there's the bloopers. I think it's on Rush Hour 2 that Chris Tucker just has an incredibly hard time saying gefilte fish. And it's really, really funny to watch. And, those movies were great. And Ty was they need to hurry up and do, 4 already before everyone gets old. And I said, they need to do 4, 5, and 6 while everybody's still young, so they can keep it going, because I love the Rush Hour movies, and as long as
they're great fun. I'm telling you, on one, I told my wife, I said, hey, by the way, there's this premiere for Rush Hour, and they're sending a limo. There's going to be a big party at Yamashiro's famous Japanese restaurant, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she was like, ah, God. I was like, what do you mean? Come on, it's a free limo ride, a movie, and a party. She was like, okay, I'll come. And I was like, wow, geez, like, be hard ass about this. But anyway, when the bloopers came on, she was laughing so hard she fell out of her chair.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I mean the bloopers are, they're the perfect cap to that movie. Like in the movie,
Right.
as energetically has you up and you're feeling really good, but the bloopers come and you go out of the theater feeling great because you just had a really good laugh, and it was an awfully funny time. I think on number one he had a difficulty time saying Chelsea Clinton.
Right.
Yeah, and dude, this is no lie. We did about 67 takes of him coming into the room and having to utter Chelsea Clinton, couldn't get it right. And it was a Friday night. It was late. All the crew were really hoping to get home. And Chris just couldn't get it. And so when we got into that mode of like, he's not going to get it right, I had to bite my lip from laughing because you knew he'd come in and he'd get that like glazed look on his face that he didn't know what he had to say. It just made all of us laugh. I mean, my God, by the end, when he finally got it, it's like, great. All right, it's over. But, oh my God, that was a funny time. It was just hysterical. Yeah, the bloopers make the Rush Hour films. But I do have a bone to pick with Arthur Sarkisian, who's the producer, because he promised me after one, he thanked me saying that, hey man, thanks, you kind of ground this movie in a little bit of reality, and that really helps out the movie. And he said, you're going to be in the next one. So I have a bone to pick because they said the reason that I wasn't going to be in the second one was because of money, because they gave it all to Chris and Jackie. But I don't know about that. I can't imagine a movie that did as well as it did. They didn't have enough money for lowly old me. So anyway, great fun though. Great fun.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen your character come back. That's why they need to do 4, 5, and 6 and get everyone back.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll happen. Who knows? With the way they brand and market films these days, and it could well happen. Who the hell knows?
Right.
Yeah.
The last two movies that I wanted to talk to you about, and then I have like two closer questions. The first one was like we talked about briefly in person, Hard Rain, and the other one is one of my other favorite roles with you, and just one of my favorite movies in general is the Departed.
Yeah, start out with Hard Rain. I mean, originally it was called The Flood. It was a great script. It was a very dark, edgy, sort of adult heist movie, which was then quickly homogenized into this horrible romance between Minnie Driver and Christian Slater. I mean, it was, and they kind of hated each other. It was really awful, actually. In fact, went to the premiere of that, and Betty White was sitting next to me. And when the film ended and there was extremely tepid applause, Betty touched my arm and said, "Ooh, that's not a good sign."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a bit of a clunker. And it's a shame because the cast was extraordinary. But, it just, I think it really fell because the audience didn't believe Minnie and Christian, and they should have just left the whole thing alone and let it be a really dangerous adult movie. But that happens, and although I thought I'd done some really good work, like the rape scene where I raped Minnie Driver, that was actually, it was whittled down because of a focus group thought it was too violent, but I did some really great work in that. And then The Departed, I mean, look, experience of a lifetime, working with Martin Scorsese, an incredible cast. I mean, my God, could you have any more stars in one movie? And all of which came with their A game. Great script by Bill Monahan. For an actor, it's a dream to be filming a feature in New York and Boston. I mean, what worse places could you be, right? And also, Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, just the real deal. Great guy. Just I mean, it was just incredible. I was very, very, very proud of the work I did in that. We had a great time, and never hurts to be in a movie that wins Best Picture.
Absolutely. So, again, because I'm an '80s kid who grew up in the '90s, and my love for action movies, Hard Rain holds a special place in my heart. Does
it really?
Yeah, it's to me like they don't make action movies like that anymore, and just the everything that went into that production with the sets and the flooding and the water. I mean, they don't really do stuff like that anymore, and the original script sounds like a much better movie from, I guess, what it turned out to be. But every time that movie's on, I watch it hands down.
Oh,
and
really?
The Departed, like that's me and one of my dad's all time favorite movies. And my dad's actually from New York, and he is big on like history and all that. And being in New York City when like he showed me Goodfellas for the first time, and the whole like robbery sequence where basically they play Layla and show all the people getting knocked off. He was telling me that like he remembers exactly where he was when he heard on the news that heist went through. So
oh, wow.
Like hearing his own personal experiences with like the Scorsese mafia movies, especially being in New York and growing up with that stuff totally being relevant still. Was always very, very cool for me to hear. And that's why Scorsese is one of me and my dad's all-time favorite directors. And The Departed, it's probably my second favorite gangster film of Scorsese's, next to Goodfellas.
Oh, wow.
And
wow.
I like Casino. Mean Streets is great, but the Departed just feels like his true follow-up with the gangster genre to Goodfellas. Everything about that movie just kind of like empowers. This is my true follow-up to Goodfellas. And I think it was actually
it was.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, it's loosely based on the life of Whitey Bulger.
Right.
We had to read Black Mass, which is the book that pretty much exposed FBI involvement with getting Bulger off, and filming in Boston as well. And there were guys on the set who would work for Bulger. I mean, it's like it was gritty and raw, and that's what Scorsese does best. And truly, for me, it was just honor to work with the guy and to be on set with him, because he's an Energizer bunny. The guy just does not stop. And he loves film. So great movie, and I'm glad that we finally brought home a Best Picture award for him. Arguably you could say that some of the other films he deserved it numerous times prior, but it was a real honor. And trust me, when we were here in my house watching the Oscars that year, there were lots of cheers and tears of joy going around, because it's not every day you get to be in a movie that wins the Academy Best Picture.
Absolutely, and it was very, very well deserved. I'm actually really excited for his new movie, The Irishman.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that too. Yeah, should be fascinating.
Yeah. I'm actually going to interview Paul Van Victor next month.
Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, he has a role in the film, and I'm going to get to talk to him about it and some of his other work. But I actually interviewed Paul a couple of years ago when I was at Point Park for screenwriting. I had a radio show there, and I talked to him about some of his work, and now I'm trying to get him on to swim in the bowl.
Oh, great! That's awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
The last two questions I wanted to ask you is the first is what are some of your favorite films? And the second is do you have any upcoming projects to promote?
Sure. Well, some of my favorite films are, sort of kind of obscure. I mean, my absolute favorite film was a movie called Children of Paradise, or in French, Les Enfants du Paradis, which was directed by Marcel Carne, that's Carne, and he filmed this piece about the theater in France during the Nazi occupation. And that in and of itself is a major feat, like how he ever did it, because there were street scenes with thousands of people. But it had some of those brilliant actors, Jean-Louis Barrault, who is primarily known for doing mime, famous French actress called Arletty, who was like the Sophia Loren of French cinema. There's a villain whose character name is Lacidaire. And it's a brilliant piece. If you can get hold of it, watch it for sure. It's amazing. But in addition to that, I love Apocalypse Now. I don't watch films over and over and over and over again, but I have seen that one about 7 times. And when you finally can hear all of Brando's dialogue in that, when he's pretty much shrouded in shadow, and a lot of people accuse him of mumbling his lines, but when I finally heard it clearly, every single word that he said in that famous scene, it is extraordinary. I mean, it's extraordinary. And yeah, love Apocalypse Now. And of late, I'm obsessed by Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino movie. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. I loved everything about it. I think Leo is going to win another Academy Award for it. I think Brad Pitt's going to get nominated. I think Tarantino's a shoo-in for Best Original Screenplay, maybe even Best Director, maybe even Best Picture. I mean, it's so refreshing to see an original piece of work in these days of like endless Marvel and DC comic films. Like, I am over it. So that may be part of the reason why I'm so enamored of that film. But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. It really is something. And then, what am I doing these days? Like, I recur on the Amazon series called Bosch, and I play Lieutenant Thorne in that, and I love working with Amy Aquino. And then this November, I've got a huge movie I'm in called Midway, and it's
Awesome.
It's about the Battle of Midway, and it's a cast of hundreds, but there's Dennis Quaid and Woody Harrelson and Mandy Moore and Nick Jonas, and it goes on and on and on. But yeah, I play an admiral. Admiral Ernest J. King, who was one of the architects who won the war for America, and directed by the great Roland Emmerich. And the screenwriter, Wes Took, is brilliant. I mean, in my career, you can pick them out. Like, if it's Aliens, or if it's Shawshank, or say even Rush Hour, for each specific genre, or Departed, each specific genre, I remember picking up those scripts and going, oh my God, I can't stop. This is just jumping off the page at me. Well, Wes Took's script for Midway did just that. He has a multi-layered plot line. He touches on a little bit of everything for everybody. Of course, it does have, major CGI battle sequences, but the movie isn't so much about that. It really is about how America used intelligence to win the war, and it focuses on the real heroes, who are the young men who hopped into planes after just 3 weeks of training and, crushed the Japanese fleet. I mean, without that, Philip K. Dick's Man in the High Castle may have been reality.
Right.
So there you go. That's kind of what I got going on, and I'm really happy to spend some time with you here. I hope to hear more about you and your film career into the future. And, if you got a part for an old guy, you got my number.
Absolutely. My actual, the last thing I wanted to ask you was if I could actually send you some of my work, just to hear your feedback.
Oh, I'd love that. Absolutely. Yeah. I love reading. Yeah. By all means, you got my email, and just shoot it over to me, and let's continue talking. that's the joy of what you get to do working in cinema as either as a filmmaker or as an actor. Your career doesn't necessarily end. In fact, I'm well prepared to act until I can't no more. So it's the love of my life. That's what I enjoy most, and I'm certainly am a lucky guy to be one of the lucky ones in the industry and do what I enjoy doing most. So I'd really, and you seem like a very intelligent, engaging guy, and I would love to see some of your work and love to talk to you about it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Mark,
Cool.
Thank you so much. I will definitely send some stuff your way, and I would love to have you come swim in the bowl anytime.
Well, hey, maybe we'll do a follow up after Midway comes out. I've got real high hopes for it, and it's been great chatting with you. And sincerely, send your stuff along. Let's stay in touch, and see you sooner than later.
Absolutely, you definitely.
Okay.
All
cool.
right.
All right, man. All the best, Sam. Thanks so much, and it's been a pleasure being in the bowl.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you in the bowl.
Thank you, brother. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Bye.